Hello, welcome. I'm glad that you're here with us again today as we continue our chronological read through of the Bible. There's a lot going on in the areas that we're in right now. It's hard sometimes to keep track of where we are and who we're talking about. But in Isaiah, at least in this first part of Isaiah, Isaiah is talking to King Ahaz, who has become afraid of Syria and has gone to the Assyrians for help rather than going to God, and that's just not going to work out all that well at all. We are going to end up our initial reading for today. We're going to read about Jotham. Jotham was a faithful king of Judah. He reigned from the age of 25 for 16 years, so he reigned what be basically from 25 to 41. There's no exceptions listed with respect to his faithfulness. So often we hear that King so and so was faithful, except that. Well, in this particular case, there are no exceptions. There's even a note that he didn't fall into the sin of his father, which was basically Hibri and that led him to enter into and pride that led him to enter the temple and attempt to offer incense. So this shows that Jotham was true to the Lord. Unfortunately, the people of Judah are still following corrupt practices. Now, the bulk of our reading today comes from Isaiah. I believe it's chapters 9 through 12. You're going to be very familiar with parts of it. The first 7 verses of chapter 9, for example, we read every Advent and Christmas season. They speak of the coming Messiah. Then Isaiah goes on to describe how Israel, Judah, has abused the blessings that God has showered on her. In their prosperity, they become greedy, they become oppressive. Rather than sharing the blessings of God with the suffering and the needy in their midst, they consume them and they ignore those that God has put among them to share those blessings with. The presence of prosperity and power can certainly be indicators of God's blessing, which is what Judah is saying. Hey, look at how we're prospering. God is blessing us. But goodness and mercy are the truest indicator of God's presence, of God's blessings. God will use, actually already is beginning to use, the Assyrians to discipline Israel and Judah. He calls Assyria the rod of his anger and the staff of his fury. But the Assyrians get carried away with that role. They become arrogant. They oppress Israel. They oppress Judah. Isaiah prophesies how God will humble and punish Assyria for her arrogance. For the rod doesn't wield him who lifts it, nor does the staff lift him who holds it. In other words, they are merely God's instrument, not God's themselves. And yet, God promises in all of this a remnant of Judah that will return. Um, a remnant that will stop leaning on other things, such as King Ahaz seeking help from the Assyrians against Syria rather than relying on God. Um, and or that they will basically that they will return to they will stop leaning on other nations and they'll return to leaning only on the Lord. In chapter 11, we hear about the coming rule of the Messiah. Again, those are familiar words, for they speak of Jesus and are frequently used in the Advent and Christmas season. For a new David will come. And in chapter 12, we see God's people will break out in song, giving thanks to the Lord whose anger has been turned away, giving thanks to the Lord who is their salvation, giving thanks to the Lord in whom they, of course, that would now be we, will trust and not be afraid. Well, again, I pray that God is blessing you as you're reading. I hope that our chats together are helping you to stay oriented as you work your way through it. Because as I mentioned at the beginning, there is an awful lot going on. Look forward to gathering with you the next time when we will actually read the book of the prophet Micah. I look forward to gathering with you again.